welcome to episode 2 in the Pub Pod of Shut Up and Ride, sponsored by Charles Owen. And we have our next guest, ladies and gentlemen. We have the wonderfully... He already came to me this evening and has asked me about slut dropping. So he set the tone of the podcast straight away, having not even listened to it. I'm not going to let that go, by the way. It's the brilliant Richard Davison. Give him a round of applause.
But you didn't actually tell me whether you could slut drop.
My slut dropping days are behind me. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you so much for coming on. We've just had the wonderful Gemma on, and you just came up and you went, "This is great fun."
Yeah, I mean, there's no way I can compete with Gemma. I just loved every minute of that. That's brilliant.
I know, she's absolutely wonderful,
Yeah.
and she will beat you with her whip if you don't say that, so it's fine.
It's getting better this evening, isn't it?
I'm actually...
Doesn't really matter you can't slut drop because now there's something else to look forward to.
Wow, when I said this podcast was the first in the equestrian industry, we meant it. But I know that, I'm actually going to shut up for a little bit, which I know is unusual. Might get another glass of wine. But Richard was organised, ladies and gentlemen, and actually sent me notes, which I really appreciate because it's quite hard. All right, Lucinda. Lucinda Green's here, guys. But you actually...
You can hear her.
Yeah. You actually sent me stuff that you were like, I'm quite happy to be spicy. I'm quite happy to cover the controversial topics.
Yep.
Spicy was a bad choice of words. How you open.
Either spicy or controversial. I don't mind which,
But you
really.
don't mind being outspoken, and this is what we've tried to create this platform for as well. It's not about, we're not trying to poke the bear or in any way, shape or form.
I've tried to spend my life not being outspoken, so now when you get to my age, you just don't bother. So
Just don't give a fuck anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
I showed the different topics that we thought we might talk about to Ben, and Ben was like, oh, yes! So I'm actually going to pass over to him for a few questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's going to keep his top on, don't worry.
Right, so the first thing I wanted to talk about is earlier today I got shown a video of your son, I believe, riding a horse bridleless.
Yeah, on Instagram.
On Instagram?
Yeah. Because we now follow each other on Instagram.
So,
Davison Equestrian.
so the reason I bring that up is because that is something that earlier, talking to Gemma, we said, great fun, great crack. What even inspired you guys to get involved with that? To want to try and, to even bother to school a horse like that and be involved in that?
So the honest answer to that is I had nothing to do with it, except I was riding around in the indoor school and watching this carry on in the outdoor school, and I said, what's going on? And Joe, my son, said, well, I thought we'd just try it. So I'm up for anything like that, and so then we had the horse stand the gallops, and then actually the next bit is about you see the horse jumping. To be honest, a bit of fun, because it definitely isn't, try this at home. Absolutely, that's not the message that we're trying to put out there. There will be a health warning on the next bit, which is about jumping. Do not try this at home.
If you do want to try this at home, visit benatkinsonmethod.com.
Yeah. Don't blame me. Blame him. So thank you. You take over the liability for that. That's good. But I am really interested in how horses learn, and it doesn't matter what they are used for. So when you are performing at Bolesworth in London, I'm in there watching. I'm really interested why these horses do what they do for you, what they do for us with you might call them in the Olympic disciplines, because they've all got a brain and they've all got to learn, and we have to help them learn. It doesn't really matter for me whether it's racing or whatever the horse is used for. I'm interested why and how it learns.
So one thing, just sort of going back ever so slightly to touch on it, is you said it was just done for a bit of fun.
Yeah.
Just a bit of a fun, a play, just why not?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we as adults need to not forget with our horses. It can get so serious all the time, and then that serious nature builds that pressure, which can then lead to poor training to try and reach certain goals and stuff. And I love the fact that you said it so flippantly, just like, oh, we just had a play, just with it. And I think that it interests me massively that you have this incredible mindset for growth for every aspect of the sport. You know, you've organised and run events, you've competed, you still compete, and then at the same time, this idea of this interest in helping our sport survive by giving us some guidelines of how to continue to improve thinking about the horse. And I think it's a real show of your character as a person that all of that comes through.
Christ, I'm feeling a bit of pressure going on here. I don't know what I'm going to be able to say to back that up, but anyway, it sounds very nice. Thank you very much.
So you mentioned to us earlier that you have a real passion about the science of training horses. Could you tell us a bit about that and how that started for you?
Well, actually, there's a guy that you might know, Andrew McLean in Australia. Well, and his son is in Europe, a dressage rider. And for many years, I moderated the Global Dressage Forum in Holland, and he was one of our guests. I mean, we've had, Monty Roberts, Jean-Francois Pignon, lots of liberty or free horse, or whatever label you want to put on them.
Say horsemanship. You fucking love them.
Yeah.
Who is? Yeah, describe who this person is.
What's his name?
Andrew McLean or McLean.
From Australia.
Yes, you know.
I've just been looking up something about him because I wanted to tell you that on 3 p.m. New Zealand time, which is 4 a.m. it's our time, he is doing a webinar on how a horse learns, Andrew McLean.
There you go.
So I think this has to just slot nicely.
Yes, no, it
Absolutely.
does. Well done, Lucinda, you're on it. So he, a long time came over, and he studies, obviously the neuroscience of horses. Oh, well, not just horses, actually, elephant, all sorts of animals, working animals, actually. And so he raised my interest in this. And, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a huge subject, and I am scratching the surface here. So you asked, what got me into that, and that's what got me into it. And then I sort of applied it to, well, hang on a minute, it doesn't really matter whether we're trying to teach the horse to go to that very scary-looking obstacle just to jump it, or to lift its legs up and what you might call be careful over the fence, or to do a dressage movement, because I think I class everything as behaviour. So behaviour, I don't mean is it rearing or napping or bucking. I mean, is it doing the piaffe or jumping the fence and managing to lift its legs up in time to not knock the fence down, or even go to the vicarage V when it, visually would normally be telling it don't go there.
Can I just say, I just heard Gemma in the corner go, that fucking jump.
Yeah, exactly, that one. Yeah. So that's kind of where I am.
So how far into your riding career was it before you started to think that way?
Probably about 15 years ago. I'm not quite sure. 15, 18
So you'd had done a lot before?
Oh, yeah. I've done all the conventional, obviously I'm very old. And so I've done the absolutely conventional, way of... I didn't start as a dressage rider, but I started as actually jumping, and then I went into a bit of eventing, and then I went into dressage. So I've done all that bit, and I was a student at the Spanish riding school, so I've done all the conventional way that used to be the way, and it is now changing, and we'll probably come on to that, because of what we've learned about how horses learn. So it's called horse learning theory, but it's very different to what I was taught and even what I did at the beginning.
Could I just ask, when you said you've had these people that specialise in maybe fringe parts of horse training, you said like Andrew, like Pat, like Jean-Francois, and you said that you had these people come, to be involved in the competitive world, to share knowledge and such. Is it that I've got a deaf ear to it, or why isn't this publicised more? Because I think that is a massive part of it, because I don't feel like most people would know that happens, that they are involved. And I think that would be, if things like that are happening,
they're looking for an invite, basically.
Not at all.
Well, we'll talk terms later.
Not at all, but the thing I'm saying is the mob is crying out for things like that to happen. And they're blooming happening, and they're just not being told. Like, why is...
I think people like to pigeonhole, but I'm pigeonholed as a dressage rider, and then when people like...
Not after this, Richard. You can slut drop with the best of them. That's what we'll tell.
Well, I'm actually hoping that I'm going to be standing on a horse, and I did want you to tell me actually how to fall off, because as you get older and you don't fall off that often, it gets a bit of an issue.
My greatest tip would be to ride a Shetland. The closer you are to the ground...
Yeah.
Actually, the best tip I ever got when I was learning to fall off was, don't worry about the ground, it will find you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, I had a very near fall off the other day off one of the jumpers, and I was doing a very stupid thing. This horse is incredibly careful, and we had one of those foam ground poles, and I was walking it and chatting to somebody, got a rug on it. It was cold, obviously in the cold weather. Walked over the pole, chatting. It jumped because I should have known it would do. The rug slipped off the back. The horse literally bolted. I know dressage riders exaggerate, but I promise you it did. I hung off the side. And it reminded me of skiing. We've been talking about skiing earlier. It was like, do I cling on and survive, or shall I just give up? And the floor was, I thought it hurt me, so I decided to cling on. But the near-death experience was good. I mean, it makes you realise it's... And that's why I think jumping is really good for dressage riders, because it doesn't matter, how small you jump. You just get used to horses moving and it all not being organised, and I think it's great. We're going a bit off topic.
Yeah. How could I ask then, when you're saying you're learning these things from these people, you're studying this equine learning theory, how have you applied that within, on your own yard, with the horses yourself and your family are using it? Could you give an example? I know that's a bit of a broad question, but...
Well, I mean, one example at the moment is, because I know that you were talking about backing horses, not breaking, bad,
well done.
Backing horses, starting horses, whatever other nicer label you want to put on it. So I am 69 years old and my wife is a bit younger than me.
Are you actually?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have said you were 60.
I can't normally get those words out, but I had to explain that.
I would have said you were not that old. Well,
what, 68 and a half or something?
Maybe 67. No, you look fantastic.
But, we are still... Why is it we're still backing horses? The arrangement is, and it's always been used, she's on the top and I'm working on the ground, but not that stupid. But to be honest with you, the reason she is prepared to do that is because I do a lot of ground work, training, helping the horse learn. And one of the issues that we've got at the moment, actually it's a horse that I have an arrangement with a friend of mine, she breeds them and then when they're 3 or 4 they come to us. This is a jumping bred horse, although I've maybe got my eye on it to do dressage, but it is jumping bred, and it is really it was really sharp and incredible. I mean, exceptionally sharp. Even to touch it in the stable, actually, I thought there was sort of slightly something, wrong with it, that it was so sensitive. So this is the example. So, we had to, whatever label you want to call it, desensitise, but you could pat it and touch it and do all the rest of it. So, and all, well, you've been to our school. In the school, there's, flags, umbrellas and all that kind of stuff. And it's, maybe we just attract the sharp horses, but I've found I've always had to do that kind of stuff. In other words, what I'm trying to say is it isn't just about how your half passes or your centre line and all the rest of it. In fact, my next goal on Saturday is one of the jumpers that I'm schooling is a very visual horse, or can be. Visual, I mean, it'll scan something other than the jumps, somebody pushing a pram, whatever, in the distance. So I'm going to get out the black medicine ball. I've got this all planned. And first of all, without a jump, I'm going to have somebody move that around in the distance and obviously make sure that the horse can continue to respond to my leg aids and rein aids at the same time as sort of
the distraction,
focusing in that. Because that's what it's about, is the response.
Well, so it's so interesting because for us now, the biggest thing we teach is focus and attention are everything.
Yeah.
So about the idea of bringing a horse away from an external focus into an internal focus, thinking about their own body. So, like, if I was about to do the training exercise you're talking about, we'd start on the floor with sort of groundwork with the horse and using someone or something we knew would spook them or distract them to take their attention. and then using a rub of our hand along the rib cage where the rider's leg would sit in the neutral position and massaging there until one of the ears flicks backwards to side, kind of be like, hang on, what's happening here? And then when we can start to get that reaction, then go to having the rider on top and then mimicking that again. Maybe not with the leg at first, because of course the horse knows the leg aids are to move. But maybe even with just the hand sort of massaging on top of the wither. And this idea of, bring the attention back to you. Because that's where we talk about being present a lot. And I think the moment you say, like, being present, people are like, oh, we're going to talk about meditation and stuff. But being present just means mind and body in the same place. And when are we scared of horses? When we've got their body.
I'm glad you mentioned that
and we
word.
don't have their mind. Because if you're leading a horse, let's go for a really cheap example. You're leading a stallion and it's screaming at the horses that it either wants to kill or procreate with over there. And the reason you're scared is because its brain's over there and its body's over here with you. Whereas if we can get the brain back with us, then the stallion will calm instantly.
And that's actually what has really deepened my interest in this. Because the last dressage horse that I competed could become scared very easily by environmental situations. And when we talk about the level of science that I'm interested in is step back from, we call it being scared, is the neurotransmitters, the chemicals that get into. I've learned this stuff from kind of human, brain studies, but it is the adrenaline or the cortisol that when we are nervous, Gemma was talking about that fucking fence. I didn't believe a word that she was really nervous, but anyway, or frightened, but whatever. But it is what chemicals, because you have to, the more you subject the human brain or a horse brain is what I'm interested in, to small repetitive triggers that will trigger that adrenaline, let's say, as an example of a fear hormone, then you don't trigger it as much. And then the adrenaline takes a shorter time to dissipate because the quantity isn't so much. And that is basically how we train horses, how everybody trains horses. It's not a new way of training it. It's just why is this working, or why is it not working? And that's what I'm interested in. So it is actually exactly like you said, triggering a little bit of the fear reaction and then managing that, basically.
And just to give an example to anyone here or anyone listening to the podcast at home, when you say triggering fear in a horse deliberately in a small amount to train them, it can sound bad. But let's talk about that concept of backing a horse. I know with my horses, I start with a tea towel. Can I groom them with a tea towel? Can I put the tea towel on their back? Then I go to a normal towel, then I go to a numner, then we go to the numner and saddle. That's a progression of, asking you to step out of your comfort zone. And so it's fascinating to hear. I have another question? I know we will move on. Sorry, guys, I'm sort of hogging. You said that you like to work with a rider and yourself on the ground. Is that something that's inspired by... Well, do you not carry that on into a higher phase? Like with especially saying that you've worked with the Spanish riding school.
Well, that was a very long time ago. I think I was probably their worst behaved student. In fact, I don't think they have a student now because I think I've stopped that. But they occasionally invite
Feels
me
like
back.
a whole nother podcast.
Yeah. It's a bit like owning up what happened at school. But anyway, carry on with the question.
Yeah. No, just in that, I know that we definitely find... because we do so much groundwork with our horses, when we first start riding them, and then when we first start schooling them. For example, I teach all of my horses to be able to move their hindquarters, rib cage and shoulders independently from the floor. Yeah. Then my wife will start to ride them, because she's a much better rider than I am, and she will give, say, the signal for a leg yield on the top of the horse, as I, from the ground, will give the ground signal, and it helps the horse step over that bridge.
But we do exactly the same as you. So, for instance, to give you this example of... We're beyond this study. A few weeks ago, very nervous, this horse I was telling you about, when my wife gets on the horse, in the stable area, by the way, and on the rubber matting and everything, I will move the horse's quarters, because you cited the example that we've all had when you get on a young horse and it puts its back up and all the rest of it. And if you move its pelvis over, like you're moving it in the horse box over, or in the stable, you release that kind of holding tension, and you are less likely to get bucked off. So we'll do a lot of that, and that is exactly what I do from the ground while she's on top, and because my hand is touching a rib cage, and I'll put a boot against the rib cage. It's all the same stuff as you do, and as everybody does. The thing that I'm interested in is, why is it working, or why is that particular horse more hyper about the sensitivity? And I think this is a big issue, actually, because if I go back in time, most people in this country, they rode horses with native breeding in them, and they weren't, like, for instance, a police horse, the suitability of a police horse, or the army, which, my grandfather used to recruit horses for the army. So that breeding of horses wasn't so sensitive and wasn't so responsive as the sport horse breeding for us has become, which is great. But actually managing that, and all the breeding awards and all the rest of it for the stallions and the mares, it's all about movement and quickness and response and all the rest of it. But actually that brings another challenge to when you want to hack down the road, or just manage horses with flags and
stay alive.
Well, I mean, this is
control their nerves, really, because that's.
Can I ask one more question? This will come from a place of ignorance, right? My job on the podcast is also that I am just the idiot. I don't really follow much sport. I'm not very clued in.
Christ, I don't know what the rest of you are. Is the idiot.
Great.
My brain's beginning to ache a bit now.
From someone who has a deep love for Iberian horses, and I know their faults, I know they breaststroke, and I know all of that, and they're little Singer sewing machines, but I love them. And we've seen some controversy in the dressage with the amount of leg age used, or the amount of hand, the amount of whether it be pulling on the double.
Controversy. I think there's been a lot of it.
Well, no, but I think there's different levels, and with the amount of pressure used down the rein or down the leg. And then I can always remember my goal as a rider, and I'll never reach it, I highly doubt I will, was watching, say, your best, the leader, the chief rider at Vienna, ride the Grand Prix test on the single slack rein one-handed. Yeah. And I've never understood why that is not the top at Grand Prix. I've never understood why, when dressage has mimicked the sport that started there, why isn't it that everybody at the Olympics should be aiming to ride on a slack rein one-handed and still do all those movements? And am I ridiculously childish and ignorant? Or is there a very good answer?
I don't think I've got the very good answer for you, but what I can say is, at the moment I'm involved with a lot of, for obvious reasons perhaps, welfare meetings where everybody's now reflecting on where we go with not just using horses for equestrian sport, but actually riding horses at all. And so we are looking, and for example, there are 1 million proposals, not just for dressage, but for all disciplines, about that kind of thing. Where should the tests? What is a test of horsemanship, and what's an appropriate test that gives the right perception to the public? So we have a large section, we'll never get all of it, a large section of society's approval to continue to use horses for equestrian sport. So that is one example. And you've seen the bridleless training. So throw me the challenge.
Manuel Vega.
Yeah, and so I've never got into this big debate in my dressage world where, should the double bridle be optional or compulsory? I don't really care about that. Just give me the challenge, and then we will work out how to do that. And if that's what society finds more acceptable, then fine, let's do it.
So are you thinking, if we continue as we are going to get to the point where we aren't able to...
We are not going to, I can just tell you now, for the insights of the meetings that I'm on, British Equestrians Welfare Steering Group, in the wake of the incidents obviously before Paris, and obviously FEI discussions and all the rest of it, it won't be continuing. So the discussions that we had...
On what level it won't be continuing? As an Olympic sport? Or
without
is it top level?
change.
Without
well,
change.
no, sorry. I mean, will continue,
Yeah.
but with change. So,
Yeah.
examples of regulatory change or changes of dressage tests. What we are asking, do we need to repeat all these movements? What's the point of it? Amount of times horses can show jump. The frequency.
It worries me that when you're giving the examples there, though, that there isn't a discussion on, simply like I was just saying then, on judging in a manner where you would, especially in dressage, be marked upon the lightness of the aids.
Oh, there has been. So, give you an example. In 2018, 2 years before 2016 to 2018, at the FEI, I was on a working group that looked at the judging, the code of points for establishing code of points for FEI dressage judging, and we spent 2 years. And part of my role was working with the Loughborough University with psychologists about talking about the concentration period that people could consistently concentrate, because as you know, at a championship Olympic Games, you require judges to concentrate for 8-hour periods, let's say, for 2 or 3 days. Yeah. And how can the human brain, this is the bit I was tasked to do it, how can it be consistent from, the first one at 9 o'clock in the morning to the last one at 4 o'clock? Yeah. Because the level playing field requires consistent awarding of scores. So we did all that, and we spent 2 years doing it. A lot of international people, Kira Kirkland from, obviously she lives in the UK, I just dropped that name out, but there's others too. And we filed that, and it sat on the shelves. It had 25 or so recommendations for the FEI to put in. Nothing's happened to it, and of course now we are in this situation.
Were these all people from different sectors of equestrianism? Or mainly dressage?
All dressage.
All dressage.
Sort of experts, if you want to call it, representatives, coaches, riders, whatever, chairman of the dressage committee, and so on. And so it was a very interesting think tank, and we stripped it right down from starting with a blank bit of paper with judging and what is it and how do you do it and evaluate it and all the rest of it. So what I'm trying to say by that is that's happened already, and it isn't a new thing that we need to look at just because of what happened before Paris.
Not just because of that at all. No, just because even just in our conversation here, and I'm not trying to be aggravating. At the start of the conversation, you said these horses are now being bred, so they've so much, we call it blood, they've got so much blood in them that you have to, having a rug on them makes, and they're going, and you have to get them used to your hand touching them.
But that's been over 20, 30 years.
But what my point is, well, if they're that light skinned, they're that soft skinned, they're that responsive.
Well, it's their nervous
then at
system.
the other end of the spectrum, what are we doing wrong that they're no longer that responsive that we need to get it? Because I'm no dressage rider. I do my best to stand on them and play with them on the floor with no tack, and then none of you know how bad I am. But we have little horses and stuff. That I've got a nice little Spanish horse that I've schooled on from a 3-year-old. Backed him and got him going and stuff. And he does his piaffe and his passage beautifully. I don't need to move my leg. He's in a loose ring snaffle with no noseband. The reins are bowed. And it's because the concentration throughout the entire process of training was to be light with the horse. Because if you start booting them, you start kicking them, then you are going to have to start getting after them more. And I just think these are the points where the public are pointing out, because we can see the horses are that sharp, but then how it's, I don't know, I don't have the answers, and I know I'm being very unfair on you.
No, you're not being unfair, because you've just highlighted one of the, I can see spanning over the years that I've been doing it, one of the flaws in the conventional way that I learned how a horse learns, or you train a horse. And it was absolutely the opposite to that. You had to keep your leg on. So if you want to do a piaffe, you cited a piaffe. So if you want to do a piaffe, you keep your leg on, you ride it into the bridle, and then it's going to do this piaffe. And actually, quite interestingly, what I witnessed when I was fairly young, although I couldn't rationalise it at that time, is that certainly in Germany, for example, they couldn't. Piaffe was not. They won all the gold medals, but piaffe was not their best thing. And so they started to look at, well, how is it our horses aren't doing it with this way of putting your leg on, holding on. If it if it starts the piaffe, you want it to piaffe more, so you use even more pressure.
Which
We
is
now know,
backwards.
absolutely backward, and it's flawed. We now know that. We didn't know that, or they didn't know that at the time. And so now we do. And when I remember, being in prize givings, when you want your horse to stand still, and all it does is piaffe crazy, and it's like, I don't want this to happen. But actually, when I do want it to happen, I want it to happen like this. So what am I not doing, or what am I doing to induce this?
Yeah.
And so this is where we've now got to and learned. And whether it's jumping or dressage, you need horses to respond. And we've learned that actually more pressure does not induce that response.
We call it the horse has to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
If there's no escape, why would they carry on playing the game? Not escape's completely the wrong word, but if there's no, you give an aid, you take an aid off.
Yeah.
And if the aid never comes off, why would the horse engage with the...
But what I'm interested in is when you do that, when you touch it with your leg or your finger on the rein, whatever, it senses something in its nerves, and the nerves travel to the brain. And if you've embedded a learned behaviour, a learned response, from its brain, it goes back down through the nervous system to its legs, and it either stands still or it piaffes or it jumps the jump or whatever you want it to do. And it's the learned behaviour and the memory recall. So learned behaviour is all on memory recall. So when we talk about patterning horses and doing repetitions, what you're actually doing is trying to make the memory, the desired memory, this is that you're shaping basically, be recalled. But not only in our job, be recalled while there's flags, cameras, all stuff going into the horse's brain, which can override that response.
I think one of the most important things for training horses for that environment is how the horse feels emotionally during the training. Because if you make the horse feel safe and understood during the training, then when you take them in the high energy environment where everything is scary, then your riding of them, or like with me working with them on the floor, becomes the safety blanket. Because when they've had those experiences with you doing those things, they have felt strong, safe and connected. And if we can sort of...
I don't know that. I'm not sure about that. I was on the working group. I was on a committee where the famous phrase "happy athlete" came out, and actually this wasn't a big item on the agenda. I completely underestimated how important this was, and it was like, okay, we've been tasked by the FAI, we've got to come up with my recollection of it, recollections could vary, we've got to come up with a sort of buzz phrase.
You are 69, so it's all
exactly,
right.
Exactly. So I'm allowed now. And so I wasn't particularly interested. I thought, I don't understand why this is a technical meeting we're having, but now we're coming up with a bit of marketing stuff. So I sort of wanted to get through it quickly. And actually, it was going on a bit. I went to the loo, so I go to the loo, get this over and done with, so we can actually move on with the seriousness. And when they came back, they went, we've come up with this great phrase, it's called the happy athlete. And I went, yeah, that's great, that's fantastic. Right now, next point on the agenda. And the next thing I know is, obviously, it's the buzz phrase, and it has, from a perception point of view, I get it, but being scientific, I don't know how you define a happy person, or is there such a thing as a happy person? And psychologists and psychiatrists are still struggling with that. So I think I'm not sure about whether the emotional states of our horses, other than obviously when they're scared and when it's pretty obvious. But I don't know whether they're happy or not.
Maybe
or just
happy is the
compliant.
wrong way to look at it. And a good example I use is anybody that's trained well to do something, and then your body almost takes over in those situations. It's because you're calm in it, that you have that repetition. I'd call it a habit loop. You build habit loops with horses.
I think that's right.
The brilliant Warwick Schiller talks about this idea of every incident that can interact with the horse is a brick of pressure, and they're holding these bricks on a tea tray, and then they can only hold so many bricks, and then they're going to drop it, and everything's going to go wrong. And so, I guess what I was trying to say is this idea of if we can make our horses feel good throughout the entire training process, not feel unsafe, not feel like they're stressed, then at least when we get in the arena, the things we are asking of them aren't adding bricks of pressure to that.
Do you think that's possible?
Yes. It's slower, but it's also not. This is the biggest thing that has fascinated, exciting me. It's about. But I used to think that. This, you can tell, this genuinely is exciting me so much at the moment.
I know he's getting excited.
Because I used to think that going slowly meant that you would go slower, and it bloody doesn't. Like, this little horse that I've got now, like, I've really started incorporating more of the clicker training and stuff. Do you know, if anybody's ever gone, I wish I could talk to my horse, I wish I could say just that, I want that, pick up a fucking clicker. Because once you get a horse clicker trained, you can use it when you ride, you don't have to use it all the time. But especially for, like, those very challenging movements. Like, I've just been teaching one of mine to, like, passage around me at liberty on a 20-metre circle, and all I have to do is raise the whip up, and he knows to go into the passage.
I wanted to know how
that's
this
works. And the moment he gave, and I just started off real simple, started off in hand classically and stuff, and then got further out on the lunge and then at liberty, and every time he even hinted towards doing the movement, click, straight.
Yeah, but you don't need a clicker. You've got a voice.
No. Because now when you're in the collecting ring, everybody else is clicking. You'll click at other horses. You'll click when moving over in the stable. It's the unique sound. So you could use, if you could pick a different word or sound.
Yeah,
but
but to be honest, everybody clicks a bit differently. But I use that click. I use sound. I mean, the sound is, the horses respond to sound, whether it's a whoa or a. Or that, but you mustn't overuse it. So I will use it after a horse has not responded to the leg.
Oh no, but I'm talking about like a dog, like click treat. It's like Pavlov's dogs.
Well, that's a positive reinforcement.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, and it's, by the way, we do also use.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. Is when because they learn that when they hear that metal, that click, that the food is coming. So my boys now know that one click means you're on the right track, and 2 clicks means the food's coming now.
Yeah.
And simply by incorporating that in training, the horses now go, oh, blimmin' hell, that's what you wanted.
Yeah.
Oh, I can do that.
But this isn't. I mean, I have sheepdogs. So all of that.
I'm preaching to the choir.
Yeah, but I can't whistle like you. If only I could whistle like you.
I can whistle. It's my only
Can't
talent,
do it,
to be
can't
honest.
do it.
That and swearing.
I'm terribly sorry because I think we're out.
Yeah, we really are out of time. We've gone like 45 minutes in, and I'm like, we've still got 2 amazing
Is anybody awake?
I think
completely hogged you, and I'm really sorry.
I think there's going to be like one question though that I do want to finish on. I'm not going to go. Oh, there's someone ooping. There's someone.
Or did you just want another drink?
It's all right. He'll be here later. He'll be here. I think with everything that's going on in the world, I'm not going to go down that path. Everyone's spoken about all the shit that's gone on in the last year, whatever. But you are on the inside. We are on the outside. A lot of people in this room just love their horses, and we kind of are. That's a little bit what this podcast is doing. We're trying to bring you lot amazing riders who are put on this like earth to like entertain us and do amazing things at the Olympics, and then us who just want to hug our horses and cry into their manes when we're sad.
We do that too, by the way.
Oh, thank you. That makes me feel better. But you are on the inside. You see these meetings. Is change going to happen? And will we see change? And will it be fed down to the people who want to know and the grassroots riders who feel a little bit kind of kept in the dark? Do you think it is going to happen?
Well, okay, first of all, just to clarify, I'm not on the inside and people on the outside. We are all on the inside, all of us, because within our power, we can ruin the perception of equestrian sport. So some of the stuff I see on Instagram now, I think, oh, why have you put that on? Only because of lack of awareness. But that is not helping anybody. And as I said earlier, it doesn't matter what discipline you're doing. The question is, should horses be used for sport, or should they be ridden at all? So we're all on the inside, and we've all got a role to play. So in terms of the strategy of what we've got to do, yes, okay, obviously I tend these think tanks and trying to work it out, and it is quite right, in my view, that national federations like the British Dressage Federation and others take their time to work out a strategy, whether we're dealing with real substantive welfare issues. So when a horse becomes behind the vertical, basically that, in scientific terms, means it is slightly overflexing. It depends on the degree, of course. Its neck joints. If it is very slight, is that a welfare issue?
Yes.
How long is... but also, what degree are we talking about? And that's what the social media keyboard warriors don't get. They completely put everything in to the extreme. And so what is welfare issue and what isn't, or what is borderline, we've got to look at. And you need to take time, because if you don't take your time, you do what some of these national federations have done, is a knee-jerk reaction, come up with the most ridiculous rule change.
No nosebands ever.
Yeah,
Like.
or, for example, or, hackamores and bitless bridles are much better, so they say, than that. Exactly. So they're bringing this rule change. A study then will be presented to them, or it will just be published and finished, which shows that the rule change that they've just implemented actually isn't underpinned by science. So, you've got to move cautiously, and you haven't actually got to be... Some of the science that I see is utter rubbish, to be honest with you, and some of it is really good. One of the problems with science studies with horses is getting enough horses. A bit like with humans, you're much better off to see studies that involve a lot of humans than subjects than 5 horses on a treadmill or whatever. So you've got to look at the science, and you can't just completely be following it, because there's a lot of conflicting science. So that is one of the things, and I think, so when people say, well, we're not hearing enough, the FEI should be doing this, or the Federation should be doing that, you've got to see that if it's regulations, if you want to really change, but make sure you are changing in the right way, and you're actually having unintended consequences, which the hackamore route can have, worse than the snaffle or whatever it is.
Because crush in the face is better than using them hit you.
So, but you understand the perception of, a lovely bitless bridle is much better. Actually, it's not necessary. It depends who's using it, of course. But so, in other words, that's what I'm saying. That's what is going on, and I'm part of the British Dressage one, and they are taking their time to do it, and I think quite rightly.
So you're saying they can't make change unless they've got the ducks in a row, and they can't.
Absolutely
and obviously
right.
they can't share that with us,
because
as the
otherwise the
outsiders.
horses' welfare will be suffering.
I think you say we are all on the inside.
Yeah.
We're not. I don't think we are. I think, like, with that.
What I mean by that is, if you do something, you have the power. Well, I have the power. Everybody in this room has the power to bring.
Of course, and I think we all have to do it. We all have to come together and make it work. But I also think, like, organisations like the FEI, they need to be more transparent about what they're doing.
Yeah, well, maybe
with
they
that,
could
even
be
if they
more
haven't got their
transparent,
ducks in a row yet, we still should know about it.
Yeah, so I do agree. I do agree with that transparency of explaining what are you doing. What meetings have you had?
But it all seems, or to me, it seems all quite secretive.
Well, I don't answer for the FEI, but and I am only one member. But I completely agree that I think the more you can explain this is what we're in the process of doing, then I think people
Like,
would
for example, like so you're on these groups, and that's absolutely brilliant. But I haven't heard of them, and I don't know who else is on them. So I'd quite like to know who is, so that we, do you know what I mean? So we get like a bit more of an idea. Doesn't mean about being transparent, about having the answers.
I mean, I couldn't possibly tell you that; it's top secret.
Nice.
No, they're all member bodies. I mean, there's a lot of member bodies that's just of our federation, because there's a lot of disciplines. I mean, don't just think about the Olympic disciplines.
So many.
Yeah. And it's right. All of them come in, and they're all at different stages of development. Some have rules that cover welfare and define what a lack of welfare is, or even what welfare is, and have disciplinary procedures for people that breach welfare. There will always be people that breach welfare, that violate welfare rules. Just having rules is not enough to stop people doing it, but they need to be in place. And that's important for the horse's welfare.
Amazing.
Right, and we as a podcast will keep poking the bear. Thank you. This has got very, very serious.
Richard, thank you so much, because I feel like I've really put you on the rack today, and thank you very much.
I did feel a bit sort of mentally.
Poor Richard.
I need to go to the darkened room.
I told him this was really fun. Sorry.
Yeah, that was been real fun.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, Simon, you come for lessons, and that's challenges me enough. But what he's done is challenged me a lot.
But thank you very much for being so patient.
We've also got got a little present for you here from Equestrian. So you've got some bands. And just thank you for coming on. Yes, Matt's in the corner, yes. No, thank you for coming on. I hope you come on again, because I feel like we're just kind of touching...
Yeah, and we won't talk about neuroscience on horses. We'll talk about something else.
I do love the video, though. Like, the video... Why are you looking so worried?
Which video?
The bridleless one.
Oh, there's more of
yes,
that.
I want to see you
out.
doing it. But hopefully you'll come back on and come on and do another one.
I've got to operate the camera. I mean, you know.
But
can't do everything.
We still have 2 guests to go on the Pub Pod. Thank you so much for coming on. But everyone, give a massive round of applause. Richard Davison.